am going to be showing you how to make a shadow box, and this is using a piece of 12 by 12 designer series paper. You can tell from the paper that I used the Country Woods designer series paper. When you're all done with this, the box measures 6 inches wide, 6 inches high. There's a 1-inch frame going all the way around. And then on the inside, you have an area that's 4 by 4 and also 1/2 inch in depth for you to use to do whatever it is that you want to. And if I move this to the light, you can see that I really thought that the area inside the shadow box was just screaming for a 3D kind of design. So I did that with some of the elements from the Country Birdhouse stamp set and the corresponding dies. Well, thank you. Thank you for liking that logo. It was a lot of fun to put together. I really do enjoy it. And it says, creating paper hugs 1 card at a time. I thought that was kind of sweet. All right, I'm going to get started, and the thing that I am going to focus on the most when I'm doing this project is building the frame, building the shadow box. And I have put together some templates that I will be sharing with you here. I will also be making or taking pictures of these so that you will be able to see them and use them, and hopefully you'll share them with your customers, your friends, so that they'll be able to do this as well. And as we go, I'm definitely going to play around with the crazy lighting because it is crazy. This, believe it or not, is a piece of the cardboard that came with a package of designer series paper. And I really like to use templates because they not only help people that I'm showing how to make projects, but they're great for kind of a library for myself. My memory isn't all that great all the time, so I can go back and I can pick this up and I will be able to, you know, make the project again or maybe tweak it a little bit. So we're going to start with a piece of 12 by 12. And hopefully you can see, I will move this so you can. We're going to make 4 score lines, the same 4 score lines on each side. They're labeled A, B, C, and D. So on each side we're going to do those 4 score lines. And you'll see the measurements here. And I'm going to use my little markers on my scoring board. I love these because they help me not have to think, and especially if I'm doing multiples, if I have these markers in, it just helps. So the first one is at 1 inch, so I'm going to put the marker at 1. The second score line on each side is going to be at 1.5, so I'm just going to pop that little guy in. The third is at 2.5, and the last one is at 3. So super simple. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these 4 score lines. Before we get started, I want to show you where we're going. And I always do this. I just like to see where it is that I'm going so that when I get there, I know that I've accomplished what I needed to. And this is where we're going. This is what the piece is going to look like when we're all said and done. It is a series of score lines, of cuts, and some burnishes. It is not hard, I promise. But because it can be a little bit challenging to see score lines and everything, especially on a piece of designer series paper, hard to see that on the camera, I've already done this piece, and this is the one that I'm going to use when I pull the project together at the end. But I want to show you how to do this with a piece of plain color cardstock that's 12 by 12. This is an old piece from Stampin' Up. I don't even remember what the color is. I bet somebody does. And the reason I'm doing this, like I said, is I want to be sure that when I'm doing the score lines, you're going to be able to see them. And on camera, a piece that is a plain color is going to be just a lot easier for you to see. Okay? But it's the exact same thing that you would do on your designer series paper. And when you do your scoring and cutting, you're not going to have the challenge that I'm going to have in looking through a camera lens. You'll be able to see it without a problem. So I put my piece in, and I'm just going to take my stylus and start at the 1 inch line, and I'm going to do the entire width or height of this piece of paper. So 1 inch, 1.5, 2.5, and 3. And if you say that out loud when you're doing it, you will dream about this later. Probably not a great thing. I'm going to turn this to the other side. And I don't know if you notice, I don't know why I have the habit when I'm doing scores. I just kind of get it going. Like up at the top, I'll go back and forth just a couple of times. I think that's just for me to make sure I know what direction to pull my stylus in. It's just the way I do it. All right, so we're on side number 3. I should also mention that when you do this project, because you are going to see both sides of your designer series paper in the final shadow box, you want to make sure that both sides have patterns that work together okay. Don't use anything that you would not want to have both sides of your paper showing. Okay, so we finished our scoring. We've got the 4 score lines on the top, bottom, and all the sides. But let's go back to this little cheat sheet and see what else we have to do, because there's just 2 more scores on a couple of sides that we need to do before we're quite done. So you're going to notice that on the side that I'm showing you on camera, we've got an additional score at E and an additional score at F. And they are at 4 inches and 8 inches. Now, they're going to be at the top and the bottom, not on the sides. And the reason that we are going to be making these score lines is they're going to help create the miter, the corner, in the shadow box. And it's really cool. Let me bring back in the example, and I'm going to show you that the corners end up being mitered. See that? And it gives you a perfect miter, a 45-degree angle miter, by what we're going to do. All right, so what I need to do is follow my little pattern, and I am going to just put my piece of paper back in. I have moved the markers, so I know what it is that I'm doing, to 4 inches and 8 inches. And again, this helps so I don't have to think. But let's look at one more thing. Look at the fact that those score lines only go, and this should actually be going to the second score line here. So I'm going to actually adjust this live. Don't you love this? This is great because I haven't taken a picture of this yet. And when I do, it will be absolutely right. The good news is I didn't make it go further down and have to bring it back up. It just wasn't quite long enough, but now it is. So when we do these score lines at the 4 inch and the 8 inch, we're only going to go down to the second horizontal score. This is the one that we did at the 1.5 inch mark. So we're going to go at 4 inches, and we're just going to go down to that second score line. Not hard, and when you do it on your own, you're going to be able to see no problem. So here's my 4 inch. Here's my second line that's scored. So you can see that second line. Trust me, this is easier to see with the solid color cardstock versus the designer series paper on the camera. So I'm going to go, and I'm just going to go down to that second score line. So you can see that I just went to the second score line. And I promise, just the second score line. And we're going to do the same thing over here at 8 inches, just down to the second. Flip that around, and the exact same thing. So down to that second score, and down to the second score. All right, so we've done all the scoring that we need to do, and now we are going to do some burnishing, and we're going to do some cutting. And I am going to close my blinds to see if that is going to help. Here I feel guilty because I'm complaining that it is such a nice day outside. Hold on. All right. This is my biggest challenge of today, and I'm just going to let it go. So here we are. We have our scores done. The next thing we need to do is go to step number 2. And here is step number 2 on a piece of designer series paper that is going to show you exactly what we need to cut. So you're going to see that anywhere that there is an X, we're going to need to cut out. And essentially we're cutting out the corners. All the other lines are the score lines that we made. And this is a good place to pause and to show you that that score line that I did down to the second line and the score line down to the second line. This is at the 4-inch and at the 8-inch. So what that means is that we're going to cut at our 3-inch mark and our 3-inch mark on each corner. But there's a really easy way to do this, and especially if you have designer series paper where you may not be able to see that line incredibly well that you've scored, just put it back in your scoring board. You can use your pointer. These pointers have many uses. You can put your pointer at that 3-inch mark because that's where we want to cut. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to flip that over. All I'm going to do is I'm going to fold at that 3-inch mark. So I can see where that is, and I know that I have that scored all the way down. I turn that 90 degrees, and I'm going to, again, just fold it at that 3-inch mark because I know where my score was at the 3-inch line. And I'm going to fold it again. Apologies that the lighting is probably driving you a little batty. I know it's driving me more than a little batty, but if that's the worst thing that I deal with today, I'm going to have a pretty good day. The reason that I scored those and burnished them at that point is I'm going to have a really good visual cheat of where to make the cuts. And I'm not going to burnish any other lines right now because if I do, it can get just a little confusing as far as what piece I want to cut out. So if I want to play it really safe and just make sure that I know exactly what it is that I'm cutting, I'm just going to fold on the 3-inch mark on each side. And look what we have. We have a cheat. We know exactly what we need to cut out. And it really is that simple to figure out what it is that you need to cut. Now, when you make that burnish, you're going to have a very defined line to cut. And I just suggest that you get a pair of nice scissors and cut right on that line. Just cut right up. If you need to get a little bit closer to the end of that score line, use your snips. I tend to use longer scissors when I'm actually cutting a longer piece. So I'm just going to cut that right up and then use my snip so that I'm right up at the edge. Now, I don't suggest that you throw away the corners, save them. And you'll see, like when I had the extra pieces from the frame that I made, I actually used these in parts of the design that I did for the middle. And I'm just going to continue around and cut these out. This is definitely a type of project that is not the usual for me. I don't make a lot of 3D projects. I am definitely one who tends to make cards. And I'm part of a Facebook group that has monthly tutorials that we put together. And for this month, the challenge was to do anything but a card. And when you hear anything but a card, and you normally make cards, it can make your brain hurt. It can make you really feel a little bit anxious. And I just had it stuck in my head that I wanted to put together a shadow box. And I actually did a smaller shadow box for the group, for the tutorial group. And then I decided that I wanted to make a larger shadow box and use a full sheet of designer series paper. So I altered the design and came up with this as the project. And it really is just a lot of fun. It is very customizable. As you can see, since I'm working with a piece of cardstock, you can use cardstock, designer series paper. It's a great way. And Catherine was talking, or I'm sorry, Carolyn was talking about this when she did her stamp-along project a little bit ago. You know, we're all hoarders when it comes to designer series paper. So this might be a perfect project for you to consider in getting rid of some of that paper. So now I've got my 4 corners that are cut out. That was this step. And if I put this template back, all the places that have the X's have been cut out. Great. So where do we go from here? Well, the other area that we need to work on are the sides that have those extra score lines. And there are only 2, one on the bottom, one on the top. And when we get those pieces done, we're going to be all set to make our project. So what do we need to do? Well, let's look at the next template. So if we look at it and we kind of put it over the top, what we need to do is we need to cut out a few areas, and this is where our score lines were. These were at the 4-inch and the 8-inch, and coming down to that second score line. So we need to cut out 2 pieces and then do a miter, do a corner cut. That's going to give us our miter on each of the sides. Not too bad, right? So, a couple of thoughts. One is that, again, like I did the first time that I did the cut, I want a visual cheat. I want to know where I'm going to cut before I start. And I'm going to bring my scoring board back in, because this time on the 2 sides where I have those extra score lines, I need to fold at 1.5. So let me just put my little marker at 1.5. And I'm making sure that I have the right side, which I do. So I can see where that 1.5-inch line is. And I'm just going to fold that. That's going to give me a nice visual. I'm going to turn that around, and I'm going to find that 1.5-inch again and just fold that in. Okay? So the only reason for that is if, like right now, when I'm showing this on camera, and it's challenging at times to see where the score lines are, this is going to give you a little bit better view, and it will also help you when you're cutting. So I need, let's bring this back in. I need to cut where my score line is, and I can just pinch that a little bit, and I'll see my score, and I'll see my other score. So I need to cut up to, score line up to the second horizontal score. That's the one that I folded. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that on all four corners. This is a project that may look a little intimidating at first. I think when people see it, they will say, oh my goodness, I don't know that I can do that. It truly is something that once you've done one, and you know, maybe if you want, do one and save it as your template so that you will have that for future reference, you will find that it is incredibly easy. The other thing is that this design is also one that you can figure out the size of the paper to use to accommodate the inside dimensions that you want in your shadow box. And I am going to put together a little Excel file that will allow you to pop in some measurements so that you can customize the size of your shadow box. I actually did that for a project that I used one of the Memory and More cards in, and it's super pretty. I will show that to you in just a minute. But it's also one where you can really do a lot of customization on what you want to do. All right, so we're getting there. We are almost there. So we've done this part where we've cut these two pieces out. Now we need to make our miter. And I want to, again, give you a little tip, because look at this little cheat, right? So when we're mitering, we don't want to cut all the way up to where we took out the square. We want to cut up to that first score line, because when you're done, look at where we're going. This is one of those sides. We have a little bit of the side that is left. We don't want to cut all the way in. So why am I saying that? Because I'm going to show you another cheat on how to get there. And all you need to do is on the sides that you're working on, just fold it at that last score line. Just fold that down. And then you're going to know that you need to cut from here to here. That's where you need to cut your corner, okay? And all you need to do is grab a pair of scissors, go right at the corner, and take it off. And what's nice about this is you can flip your project over. I'm right-handed, and it's so much easier for me to cut with my right hand, hold with my left, and just cut it off. We are almost there. I promise there's only one more little mitering to do, and then we are going to be ready to make our box. So all I did there was I burnished that last score, and now I have a visual of where I need to cut, and I'm going to go corner to corner, flip it over, corner to corner. So please give this a try, because I'm more than confident you are going to love making these boxes. And now all I'm going to do is, we're done with our scoring, we're done with our cutting, and we need to burnish. So on each side, each of the four sides, I'm going to make sure that the 4 score lines, because there will be 4, that I am burnishing them really well. And this is how I'm going to get to the next step of putting it all together. And regardless of the size shadow box you make, these are the same steps that you will do to get your piece. And it's actually a pretty forgiving project as well. Okay, one more burnish. So before I bring out the piece that I put together, that we're going to put together, let me show you where we're going. So the first sides we're going to do are the ones that are not mitered. I'll do this again in a minute with the ones that I have, and we're going to make these rectangular tubes. That's going to be one of the sides. And we're going to go and do the other one. So we're going to put those 2 down. Those are 2 of the sides. And then we're going to take the mitered sides and we're going to attach them, and watch what happens. They fit into each other. Isn't that the coolest thing you've ever seen? It's so cool. But let's not do it on this piece. We are going to do it on the piece that I cut out, because this is what I want to work with and show you how to put together. All right. So here's where we're going. We need to get our 4 corners together, our 4 sides together. It is just so much fun to see this really pop into a shadow box. And you have some choices, because I know we don't all like the same kind of adhesive. There are 2 adhesives that I recommend more than others for this project. One of them is tear and tape. The other is Tombow. Now, it's your choice. I will say that the tear and tape, as you know, is going to be a little stronger, but the Tombow is going to give you a little bit of wiggle room. And the wiggle room, in my opinion, I like, because I do want to get the corners as perfect as I can. And I am going to turn on this light now to help us as I'm doing the gluing. And I hope that's not too much. My sincere apologies about this crazy lighting, but again, it's the worst thing that happens to me today. I feel pretty good. Okay, we're going to start by adhering 2 of the sides. And the 2 sides that we're going to do are the ones that do not have the mitered anything. These are the ones that were just the plain. And it's important that you do those 2 first. Doesn't matter which one. I like to do them like this, where I turn and whatever piece, whatever side I'm working at is at the bottom. And I am going to use Tombow. Now, a couple of things to think about. You don't need a lot of Tombow, and don't put it right at the edge. I really recommend that you make a sort of rectangle to mirror the shape of what it is that you're doing. And here's what we're aiming for. I'm going to fold this in half, which means that I'm folding it so that I'm at the 2nd score line. And you can see, if you see where the box is, it literally is in half. And I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to just stand it on its end and flip it over, and I'm going to push it down. And you're going to want to grab your bone folder, because you're going to really give a good burnish in a similar way to what Carolyn did when she was using the Tombow. This is going to help get everything square. And then push it all the way over to the other side. And again, use your bone folder and get it, just push. Try to get those burnish lines really burnished. And what that's doing is it is really squaring things up. So you now have one of your tubes that's attached to the bottom. All right, we've done one. Let's do the other one. The reason I'm folding it like this, and I'm not folding it in half when I'm putting the glue on, is to make sure I don't get any glue on a place where I don't want it. I just need it on that first fold. So it's for me where I don't need to think, and it just kind of helps me. So I'm gonna get my Tombow going here. There we go. Get a little bit of Tombow on here. And now I'm going to fold this in half. I didn't want to get any Tombow where I didn't need it. And then I'm going to fold that over, push it down, and do the same thing. You will see, if you find, videos and tutorials and all that on shadow boxes, you're going to find a lot of different ways that people do these. And it's fabulous, because I bet when you look at those, you will find that there's a mixture of different ways that people do them that you're going to want to emulate. So here we've got our two sides. Perfect. Now we need to do the sides that have the mitering. Not difficult. Let me show you and kind of say why we're doing what we're doing. We're going to flatten out the two sides that we just did, because eventually we're going to take this little guy, fold him in half, and fold it over. And the only way we're going to be able to burnish is this way. We can't fold it up. It's just not going to work because we've already put the other two sides down. But this is going to be a guide for us, and we need to get them aligned with that as well. So, no surprise. Put the Tombow there. I'm going to fold that in half. I can fold my sides down because I've already worked them with the bone folder. And I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to give that a good burnish. I'm not going to go super crazy when I get over to the other sides, and then I'm going to pop that little guy up and watch. Ta-da! Isn't that the coolest thing? It fits right in. It literally fits right in. But we're going to adhere that in just a minute. But you can see that because of the way it was designed, it just goes together like a little frame. All right, other side. Same thing. I like projects like this that when you've done them, enough, it's a little bit, not mindless, but I find these kinds of projects relaxing when you feel comfortable putting them together. And again, we're just going to give that a little burnish and then pop it up. So when we push our sides in, we've got our box. Super, super cool. We do want to adhere these together. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to push the sides that you originally did. These are the ones that don't have the miter. You're going to push them down. And then you're going to put a little bit of glue. But watch where I put the glue. I want to get glue right up in here. But let's think about this. When these go in, the paper is going to scrape, especially as we start putting all four sides together. And as paper scrapes, and if we have glue, it's going to spread. So if I put the glue over in this area, when I put it together, it's going to automatically sort of spread where I want it. So I'm going to put a little bit of glue. Maybe. There we go. So a little dab of glue and a little dab of glue in the same place over here. And I'm going to do all four at the same time because they're all going to be going up at the same time. So I'm just putting glue on all four of the corners. And I'm going to make sure that that one is popping up. And I'm just going to put them together and then you may need to hold this for a few seconds to let it dry. And what's also nice about this is because I'm using Tombow, I can look at the four corners and make sure that they are positioned where I want them to be, that they're nice and square. If your glue doesn't take, don't worry. There are many different ways that you can add some Tombow under and get it so that it will stay. One thing you can do is take a piece of scrap paper and put a little bit of Tombow and then scooch it under and allow it to just stick on the top. But you'll see this one is working just fine. So there's my shadow box. Isn't that cool? And you've got a 4 by 4 inch area in the middle.